REM once said, "It's the end of the world, and I feel fine." But that happy-go-lucky concept didn't have to deal with mutants, marauding bandits, and the splintered remains of humanity trying to scratch a life in a post-apocalyptic world. Settings like this aren't anything new, particularly for video games, but wandering through id Software's take on this concept has been eagerly anticipated by shooter fans. After all, this is the company that put the first-person shooter genre on the map almost 20 years ago. So, how impressive is id's latest shooter? I'm Jeff Haynes, editor at Tech Bargains, and make sure that you've got your favorite weapon, some ammo, and a stash of water ready, because we're getting ready to roam the wilderness of rage. We won't try to spoil the game, but we'll give you a quick intro into the world of this shooter. The concept of rage starts with an imminent threat to all life on the planet. A massive asteroid is on a direct crash course with Earth, and there's nothing that can be done to divert it. In preparation of this catastrophe, the US government enacts the Eden Project, a plan to bury hundreds of facilities known as ARCs with a dozen carefully selected humans for each location. The idea was after a century-long cryogenic sleep, the members of the ARCs would rebuild society. Of course, everything goes wrong, and as you awaken 106 years later, you discover the decayed corpses of everyone else in your bunker. Things get even worse as you leave the building, because you're instantly attacked by mutants. Fortunately, you're saved by Dan Hagar, the leader of a local faction, who takes you to a settlement and fills you in on his resistance movement against a dangerous organization known as the Authority. While he could sell you to rival groups for a hefty bounty, he thinks that you could be useful to his cause, and he has you repay his rescue attempt by instantly wiping out a rival clan with a gun and an ATV that he loans to you. Thus begins your exploration into the wasteland that is Rage. Now, if you're looking for a game that focuses on stealth for multiple missions or diplomacy to resolve a situation, you're in the wrong place. From the intro to the ending credits, you're going to be blasting your way through bandits, mutants, and other enemies without being slowed down by random puzzles. It managed to capture the flow and heightened danger that could potentially befall you at every turn, and you're constantly thrown into hazardous situations where you've got to defend yourself. Of course, as a first-person shooter, although it does have RPG and adventure elements, Rage's strength lies upon its assortment of weapons to see you through the land. It comes with the standard kinds of weapons you expect in shooters, like shotguns, pistols, sniper rifles, and the like, but there are two factors that really make it work compared to some other shooters on the market. For one thing, you're not limited by the number of weapons you can carry. Although you may be limited to scrolling between 4 weapons at a time, you have more than enough space in your pockets to pack grenades, rocket launchers, ammo, and items without being weighed down. Just give players access to the destruction they want to cause when they want to cause it, and we're sure everyone will be happy. The other factor is that the ammo really stands out. Crossbows are great for silent but deadly kills in shooters, but have you ever fried enemies with electro bolts? What about mind-controlling arrows? That's what you'll get to enjoy in Rage, as you can control your opponents for a period of time, disposing of his friends until you get to the other perk of this kind of ammo. It makes brainwashed enemies explode. Most of the weapons in the game come with special ammo, which provides a strategic twist to the usual gunfights you find in these games. We also like the fact that enemies actually tried to stay alive more than other enemies you expect in some shooters. The non-mutants would duck behind cover, throw grenades to flush us from protection, perform blind fire, and even talk to each other about our position. It was clear that these were intelligent opponents, and the first time that we saw them target and blow up an explosive remote-controlled car headed in their direction that we were driving, we knew we had a serious firefight on our hands. In fact, the intelligence of the AI encourages you to fly through loads of ammo and switch weapons to defeat opponents. Knowing the right scope for the job in the right situation was incredibly satisfying. But it's not static across all of these enemies. Mutants don't worry about cover and will instead charge at you, bouncing off walls, performing acrobatic flips, and other kamikaze moves. These tactics make them tougher to target, making it a bigger test of your skills in battle. Another thing that stands out with Rage from other shooters is how visually incredible the game is. It went through criticism over the overwhelming darkness in Doom 3, which was environmentally appropriate but a large obstacle to overcome, and it's apparent that the developers paid extra attention to getting the colors and visuals just right. The environment is bright without being oversaturated, and it really gives you the impression of the destroyed world. Id could have resorted to a plain, boring palette of earth tones to represent the apocalyptic settings, but it's clear that there was a concerted effort to do something different. There are detailed characters and objects in each environment, eye-popping explosions, and blood spatters that are just gorgeous. All of this is wrapped up in a game that's pretty decently packed full of action. You can expect to get anywhere between 10 to 15 hours of gameplay, depending on how good you are with shooters, and if you choose to fly through the main missions from start to finish. If you choose to bump up the difficulty level, or you try to complete all of the side quests in the racing tournaments that provide you with helpful vehicle and item upgrades, you can squeeze out many more hours of play. It all depends on just how immersed you want to get into this destroyed world and its inhabitants. Unfortunately, you will have to put up with some problems as you get ready to blast mutants and other enemies in Rage. For one thing, missions that you take on can be incredibly tedious and boring. Just about every mission revolves around fetching an item or acting as a gun for hire, which makes the plot evaporate in thin air as you do the same thing over and over again. Even facing off against certain groups doesn't occur until much later on in the game, so you'll have to embrace the repetition. What's more, you're essentially guided from one location to another without a large amount of freedom. You can't really climb rocks or explore alternate routes, or open locked doors and bases regardless of the kinds of explosives you use on them. If it's not a direction that you're supposed to be pointed in, you're not going to be allowed there. The only open space that you can explore is the Wasteland, which is essentially a driving track for your dune buggy, and that's about it, which is somewhat disappointing. Another unfortunate issue we ran into was the save system, which was just abysmal. While the game autosaves your status, it does this so infrequently that you have to rely upon the quick save feature to protect your progress. While we're used to the old adage of save early, save often, that frequently applies more to role-playing games than shooters. Using this as a gameplay model is a bad decision because gamers have to hope they're not killed before the next random auto-save point, or they have to interrupt play every few minutes to save so they don't lose lots of time, which slows down the pace of the action. Finally, Rage does have some graphical issues that were pretty hard to overlook. We noticed screen tearing, low frame rates, and other problems that were frequently attributed to video card drivers. Fortunately, installing AMD's Rage performance driver, along with the game's hefty patch, alleviated these problems, but you'll definitely want to make sure that all your hardware and software has been updated before you try to launch the game and find yourself frustrated. Rage is a flawed first-person shooter, particularly because there isn't a lot of exploration, the story only advances the action, and the save system is broken. However, overlooking all of these qualms is the fact that it's an entertaining shooter. From beginning to end, the game is gorgeous to watch, lots of fun to play thanks to the assortment of firepower you carry, and the pacing of the game is rock solid as you blast your way through the Wasteland. It's not a brain teaser, but it is a lot of fun to play in a great environment, if you could consider the End of Civilization great. If you're a shooter fan, we think that you'd enjoy checking this demolished world out, which is why we decided to give Rage a 4 out of 5. For up-to-the-second news and deals, make sure to follow @TechBargains, which is our Twitter feed, and for the latest news and reviews on the newest products, as well as coupons and deals on games like Rage, be sure to check out techbargains.com.